Hey guys, welcome to today's video. We're going to be discussing the Atlanta Falcons and what they should do with the number 4 overall pick in this year's NFL draft. Also, quick question here. I've been thinking and looking into maybe doing some NHL and NBA, maybe some MLB content too. Would you guys be interested in that? Leave your thoughts on that in the comment section down below. Also, if you're new around here, please drop a like and a sub. That would really help my channel grow. I'd really appreciate it. With that said, let's dive right into the video, and I hope you enjoy. So the Atlanta Falcons are in an interesting position, okay? They have the 4th overall pick in next year's draft. They've got a new head coach, new GM. It's all new in Atlanta. However, I don't think this team was as bad as their record last year. So my number one option for them is trade back. Right now, I don't think they need a lot of help on the offensive side of the football. They've got Matt Ryan. They've got Julio Jones. I think Arthur Smith is going to keep them. I think him and his offense and what they're going to be able to do down there with those guys is going to be fascinating and very interesting to watch. I'm excited to see what's going to happen there. So I think Matt Ryan's going to stay. I think Julio's going to stay. I think, obviously they've got Calvin Ridley. They've got an okay offensive line. They're going to have a good offense next year. So really, it's all about the defense, and I don't think there's a defensive talent in this year's draft that is worthy of a top 4 pick. I don't think that's the case. Maybe Micah Parsons is. But at the end of the day, I don't think Parsons or even a linebacker in general is worth that high of a draft pick. So number one idea for me is just trade back. Trade back to 6, trade back to 7, 8, 9, 10. And you know what? There are some guys there where you could go out and get a good defensive player. I mean, I think that a guy like Micah Parsons might fall there. Obviously, there's Gregory Rousseau, Kwity Paye, there's Patrick Surtain. There's a ton of guys that I think could drop to 8, 9, 10 that are really good defensive talents that you probably don't want to pick at number 4. So that's my number one thought. Number 2 is draft a franchise quarterback, okay? You can never be too safe in drafting a franchise quarterback, okay? You can never be too aggressive in it. If you believe that Matt Ryan doesn't have that much left in the tank, then go out and draft a franchise quarterback. This is going to be your best opportunity in a while because I think this Falcons team is going to get better. I do. And there's some good quarterbacks in this draft. I mean, Justin Fields is a good option. Zach Wilson's a good option. Those are 2 really good options for the future. I mean, Justin Fields is much more of a mobile quarterback with, solid arm talent, not great arm talent, where Zach Wilson is a guy who can really push that ball down the field. If I had to really compare the two to some NFL players, I'd have Justin Fields as a Kyler Murray-like, Jalen Hurts-like comparison. They're very good to be able to get outside the pocket, really mobile and accurate on the run. However, some of that arm strength isn't great. I mean, Jalen Hurts' arm strength isn't terrific. Kyler Murray actually has great arm strength, so I don't think that a guy like Justin Fields is really that comparable to a guy like Kyler Murray. I think they're in the same conversation, same type of quarterback. They remind me of each other. But overall, I think Justin Fields probably has worse arm strength than Kyler Murray. Can't really throw the deep ball as effectively. Still can. Don't get me wrong. I mean, he was fantastic. He was fantastic in his career at Ohio State. The only concern with me is, there haven't really been great Ohio State quarterbacks. That shouldn't really be, a big thing if you believe in Justin Fields, and I think that's a good option. The other guy is Zach Wilson. I think Zach Wilson could be a really good talent too. Wilson reminds me a little bit of Patrick Mahomes in a way that, he has that huge arm strength, that elite arm strength that you just don't see. And then he's got that ability to make plays outside the pocket using his legs. Another thing, though, is that, watching a lot of a guy like Zach Wilson also kind of reminds me of a guy like Drew Lock coming out of college, a guy who had great arm talent, really able to be mobile outside the pocket, throw on the run, stuff like that. I see that from Zach Wilson, so I think he would be somewhere in between a guy like Drew Lock and a guy like Patrick Mahomes. He's definitely a better prospect than Drew Lock was, and, Patrick Mahomes is just Patrick Mahomes. So I think that, Zach Wilson, coming out of college, I think here could be a really exciting prospect, but I think he's got much more of a lower floor but a higher ceiling than a guy like Justin Fields. Where Justin Fields, he's a fantastic quarterback, was his entire career. The only thing with him is just consistency and being able to play game in and game out really at a high level, something that was wasn't always there for him at Ohio State. But I think that both of them would be great picks at number 4 for the Atlanta Falcons. However, that's only if you don't believe in Matt Ryan. Now, though, let's go to my option number 3, and this is probably my favorite option. So at option number 3, I have draft Patrick Surtain. And I love Patrick Surtain, and he kind of reminds me of Jalen Ramsey. This Atlanta Falcons defense was absolutely terrible last year. Okay, I'm going to be honest. They were one of the worst teams in pass defense. They could not get to the quarterback. They just couldn't. They did draft A.J. Terrell last year in the draft in that first round. And if you got Patrick Surtain this year, you could pair him next to AJ Terrell, have two young corners for the future, and I would like that for the secondary. It would really help the pass defense. However, Patrick Surtain, I don't know if he's a top 5 talent. He's definitely a top 10 talent. Don't get me wrong. I think he's the best corner in this draft. Caleb Farley is definitely in that conversation. I just like Patrick Surtain a lot more. Farley's much more of a speed corner, where Surtain is much more a physical, great corner that, can just man up on your best receiver and just be really physical with them and, cause problems. And in that regard, he reminds me of Jalen Ramsey, because Ramsey, if you watch Jalen Ramsey, he's fast, right? Patrick Surtain doesn't have the Jalen Ramsey speed, but Patrick Surtain does have the Jalen Ramsey toughness and physicality and, instinct for the ball and just to go through people and the tackling ability. I love that from Patrick Surtain. He's a really physical corner that's really strong in coverage, does not let down whatsoever. And that's what I love from Surtain when I watch him, especially on tape. If you watch some Patrick Surtain tape, he's a really physical guy that can really, lock down number one receivers, really be just annoying and just aggressive and feisty, and that's what you want from your number one corner, and I think that would be a perfect fit in Atlanta. However, I don't know if you draft him in the top 4, in the top 5, so maybe trading back and going to 5, 6, 7, or 8, and then drafting him there is probably a better idea, getting some more draft capital, but I love Surtain, and I think that's a real guy the Falcons should really consider at pick 4. At pick 4, they could also go and get some front 7 defensive help, and that's the defensive ends, defensive line, and the linebackers. And this is my option 4. Go get some defensive help. Go get some front 7 defensive help. And there's a few names here. At number 4, a guy like Micah Parsons could definitely be available. He is one of the most talented players in this year's draft. However, you don't typically want to draft a linebacker in the top 4 or 5. I mean, that's not really one of the better decisions that you can make, because you can find good linebackers. I mean, you can find good guys that can really attack the football well. But overall, Micah Parsons is one of those special talents at linebackers that you really don't see. Another guy you could probably get is a guy like Kwity Paye. Kwity Paye can play anywhere on that defensive line. He can play at defensive end, defensive tackle. He's good as a run blocker. The only one thing that I don't love from him is he didn't really produce that many sacks at Michigan. I think the most sacks he had in 1 year was 6.5. Not a really high sack guy. So when you're drafting a guy like Kwity Paye in that first few picks, definitely got the talent to be really special. But I don't think that he's really going to be a great pick in that high first 5 picks, because he didn't really get the sacks. And when you're drafting a guy that plays on the defensive line in those first few picks, you want a guy that's going to get sacks. And Kwity Paye really didn't do that. So maybe trading back to 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, getting Kwity Paye, that could be an option for this Falcons defense, but it's definitely the defense they're going to need to focus on. And finally, another guy that I like for that front 7 is Gregory Rousseau. The only knock on him is he's only played 1 year of college football, I think, and he had like 15 sacks, 15.5 sacks, something like that in his first in that season for the University of Miami. And he's a really good, lanky, long, fast, quick edge rusher, defensive end that can really get to the quarterback. He was really good at that. However, he's a little bit raw. If the draft had been last year, you probably would have been a top 5 pick. And if he was eligible for the draft, he would have been a top 5 pick after his fantastic season. I mean, he was really, really good. And he's a guy that's super special because he's long, he's fast, he's quick, he's got a great knack for getting to the quarterback. And that's what you want if you're the Falcons. I mean, you really do not have any real pass rushers on that defensive line that can really get to the quarterback. And a guy like Gregory Rousseau is a guy that you would definitely want. However, when it comes to the front 7, I think Micah Parsons probably would be the pick at number 4 if you want that. But it's really getting defensive help for the Atlanta Falcons. You really need help on the defensive line. You need help in the secondary. You need help at linebacker. You need help all along this defense. So I think guys to look at are probably guys like Micah Parsons, guys like Patrick Surtain, who is probably my favorite for the Falcons at number 4, and then a guy like Gregory Rousseau or Kwity Paye, guys like that could really be defensive impact players. I think this offense has the weapons that it needs. Obviously, running back is probably something you want to work on, but I think you can do that either in free agency or in the draft later on. But at number 4, it's either trade back because you don't feel like the value at number 4 is what you want, which is probably what you should do. But if you want to stick at number 4, I like Patrick Surtain a lot. It's a little bit of a reach, but I think he'd be a great corner for this Falcons defense. So, in my opinion, if I was the Falcons GM, I would probably go and get Surtain or Micah Parsons at number 4. I really like the prospect that Surtain is. But I think that, if you believe in Matt Ryan, go get some help for this defense. And with that said, that's pretty much going to end the video for today. Did you agree with my analysis? Why or why not? Leave your comments and thoughts in the comment section down below. And with that said, I hope you enjoyed the video. Please drop a like and a sub, and until next time, see ya.